sexy on Secular Sexuality.
Hello and welcome to Secular Sexuality, the ACA show that actually knows how to trim our fingernails and how to use a strap-on. I'm Christy Powell. My co-host tonight is one of the sexiest entrepreneurs to ever grace the show, Amberly Rothfield. Welcome, Amberly.
Thank you so much.
And our guest tonight is an AVN award winner and a sinner with 2 N's. Welcome, Sinn Sage.
Hello, I am so thrilled to be here.
And before we start tonight, we are saddened to hear about the passing of Dakota Sky. She was an absolute sweetheart and to so many different people, and she's going to be very well missed. Gone far too soon.
Mm-hmm.
But tonight we will be talking to Sinn Sage. We're going to be strapping in and strapping on to talk about some girl on girl in the dog eat dog world. So make sure you guys call us at 512-991-9242 or tiny.cc/call-sex before the show to start right now. Call in.
Yeah.
We want to hear from you guys.
We'd love to hear from you. We've got a bunch of lines open. We've got a couple of calls already coming in, but I will just go ahead and say that now is the time to call because we've got a lot of great content that we want to go over and some really big name guests. So please, this is your moment. If you don't call now, I cannot guarantee that the shy folks who like to wait a half an hour are going to have a shot. With that though, okay, so you work with Sinn Sage Productions. You are Sinn Sage. Tell us about how you came to own your own studio and what that looks like.
Yeah, so for me, it's kind of like, I guess, the obvious sort of end result of having been a performer in the business for as long as I have. And I always kind of imagined that like owning a studio or running a studio, it required some sort of capital or some sort of something in particular that I just didn't have or would never get. But no, not really.
Sure.
Just, get yourself a watermark and yeah. And, you need like some kind of distribution, but now everything's distributed online really. So just, when you're ready to say you've got a studio, go ahead and say it and make it happen. So I finally eventually was talking with Courtney Trouble of Trouble Films, which is one of the most iconic queer film companies in the business. And that's something obviously like I identify with my queerness very, very strongly and always wanted to be a part of that and like represent that with the work that I do. It's really important to me. So I just asked them like, hey, I'd love to, what does it take to make your own studio? Cause I kind of want to do that myself. And they were like, oh, well, how about you just are the studio and we'll distribute your stuff? And I was like, sounds great. And here we are. So yeah.
Well, why was it important? I mean, you mentioned really identifying with your queerness. That may be a good place to start, but like why take on the responsibility, the headache and everything else here?
It's kind of like at some point you have to become the producer. You can't just be the performer anymore unless you're wanting to move on and do other things with your life. So there was a time around sort of like the beginning of the Pornhub boom when, companies weren't like booking me as often, and I could kind of see that was slowing down a lot. And I had to then just be like, well, how am I going to adapt? Because to me, this has always been a career. It's never been like, oh, I'm going to do this for a little while and then move on to other things. Like, no, this is what I was meant to do. And I love this job. So it's a career for me. So I was like, I have to just get my hands on a camera, and I'm getting all these emails about making custom videos. So maybe I should also get a light. And so, yeah, I started with like a Sony Handycam. That was, like $130 and a $25 light I got off Amazon, and just tried to make one of these custom videos, and that's where it started, probably back in 2013. And then things start to build and they start to grow, and before you know it, I'm like buying a better camera and I'm buying a light kit, and it just kind of snowballs and just does its own thing. And so I will say, so being a content creator, being a producer, especially making custom videos, it is, I don't want to call it a headache, but it is like stress for sure. It can be a lot. The inbox is never not full. Like the email inbox is just a cycle of getting it all cleared away and then it all fills up again. But it's so totally worth it to have, what I consider is just like the freedom of doing this, freedom in so many ways. And I feel like, I rather than just being like a commodity for these studios, now I am the studio and I am the means of my own production, and so the owner of my own productions, and that's what has made me a lot more successful over the past 10 years for sure.
Yeah, well, I mean, anybody who has seen a secular sexuality video and then has taken a look at like my own YouTube channel can obviously testify to like the importance of having like a incredible production studio behind you, and the value of like the proper cameras and everything else. But I appreciate that you wanted to be able to, I guess, chart your own course a little bit and have that kind of autonomy. I mean, what was the value in that? Like, why has that been useful for you?
I mean, the value to be able to really be the one who makes all the decisions, the one I can decide, if I'm going to produce this custom video or not. If someone is like, I want you to make this, and I can read it and I can be like, well, I'm okay with this, but I'm not okay with that. So yeah, to me, I wanted to make sure that the things that I make are like representative of the things that are important to me, like ideologically. It's not always that way because, with customized videos, it's like, I just want to help people get off and feel good about it. So yeah, making my own studio, producing custom videos, all of this stuff. I like being the one in control of my life, basically, and not having to rely on bosses or other, studios, rely on them hiring me, or it's all on me. Like, I've got the responsibility, which is a lot, but also it's that freedom to just represent myself. So
there's a supreme power in that too, like being able to represent yourself and knowing that because I know when I started that there were a lot of there was only a certain number of studios, if that makes any sense. And with there only being a certain number of studios and companies that we could even work with, there becomes that I don't want to say stigma, but the idea that there's only so much money that you can, not so much money that you can make being someone that would normally be booked, but knowing that I can turn away money and still be okay. Like I love the fact that I was able to do that, at least when I got started. And it sounds like Sinn has a similar story of not maybe wanting to work with a traditional studio. So I thought traditional studios are bad.
Okay, so a traditional studio having your own power, I mean, it's not necessarily a bad situation, but I'm getting the sense that this like impacts the type of content or the way the content looks. I mean, what is the value of that freedom here?
I think so. The bigger studios, they've got all the money, so they definitely have cameras that are, way better, and they can get locations that are very expensive, and so, I'd say what I do, and what Courtney Trouble does, it's a little more homegrown, but again,
not to butt in on that, but Courtney, I love heart to Courtney. ironically told me, she's like, I started off filming porn in my bedroom, and now big studios are beginning to do what we do, which I thought was I love that. She's like, they used to make fun of me, but now they literally do the same thing that I do, and they come to me for tips. Love that.
Yep.
Shout out to Courtney Trouble.
Yeah. Well, and that was especially a big thing when COVID hit. It was these big, major, huge studios that normally rent out, multi-$1,000 locations for the day were contacting us performers individually and being like, okay, do you have a camera? Do you have a 4K camera? Do you have lights? And can you make something in your house? And we'll pay you for it. And they turned those into full-on DVDs. Like I went to a sex shop last night and I saw a DVD, like an actual physical DVD with my scene that I made, that I shot in this house, that my husband shot me, like on that DVD. So that was just another shift as far as that innovation, what you were talking about before. It's just that, like, yeah, the industry will always be innovating and finding ways to get you the porn that you're looking for. But yeah, I mean, that's just what I do. Like, we shoot stuff here in the house. When we get really sick and tired of this as being a location, we'll rent an Airbnb or like a hotel room or something and just shoot there for a change up. But that's the thing is, you get like nowadays, and things have changed so much since I got into the industry. But nowadays, so 15 years ago, if someone was like, well, how do I get in the industry? I'd be like, okay, you get an agent, and you can find, these ads from some photographers, and you can go on like Model Mayhem or whatever. But nowadays, like so many people are, oh, how can we get into the industry? And I'm like, dude, I don't know, man. You got the internet, like figure it out. Like, because really anyone can do it. I mean, do you have a phone?
Exactly. Do you have a phone is my question.
That's the requirement.
Yeah. Well, I any other tips for performers that are wanting to like take control of their work and are wanting to kind of follow in some of these footsteps?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, obviously right now, the biggest thing you can do is like you start yourself off with an OnlyFans, like get an OnlyFans, make a media presence, make an online presence, get your stuff on every platform you can. And then once you have that going, don't stick only with OnlyFans. Like take all that content you're shooting for OnlyFans and get a ManyVid store, get a clips for sale store, diversify your portfolio is what I like to say. And once you start shooting all that stuff, that's basically, I mean, now you've got yourself a little studio. Tell the world that you are making custom videos and make yourself a website, or, pay someone else to do it for you. It's not that hard.
Yeah. Well, we already have a small stack of callers coming in. I'm really excited to get to our main segment tonight, which is about, the heteronormatization, the sexualization, the fetishization of lesbian sex, especially in pornography. So, I'm very, very eager to give us as much time for that. So I think we're just going to sneak in one very quick phone call with Alex. But Alex, you are on the line with myself, Christy, as well as Amberly and Sinn. What's on your mind tonight?
Hello.
Howdy. What can we do for you?
Pretty much the way the call screener talked to me is pretty much the way that my previous relationship went could actually project towards most issues we have in society today. So I'm going to give you a really, really, really brief kind of, go around the previous relationship. Just so
so you can. I'll definitely let you kind of walk us through your thinking. But real quickly, can you just kind of let us know what your question is or where we're headed here?
Basically, the question I asked, right, is it possible for atheists and theists to be in a relationship?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. Why is that on your mind? I didn't mean to interrupt you. I get that you wanted to kind of walk us through something quickly, if you would.
Basically, relationship I had I was born in Russia, right? We moved here in '95 when I was 5 years old, right? So I never felt like I belonged, right? So after the military service, right, I've tried kind of having a relationship with a girl that was Jewish and a believer. And one of her kind of, no points was, just convert. And I had no problem with that because I, as an atheist, don't really care what is stated in my, ID or whatever.
Sure.
Just convert.
But
Yeah.
It's easy.
if you look,
Just say
if you
it.
look at it realistically, right? If you look at it realistically, right? Your beliefs don't change based on what is written in your passport, right? So it doesn't really matter at the end of the day what is written on any document, right? Or am
Well,
I-
certainly not on a document, but I think, but that your initial question was a little bit more nuanced
that's what I'm
than.
getting at.
Fair to say.
Yeah.
That's
So
what I'm getting at.
I'm a cultural Jew, meaning we do the Jewish thing. We don't believe in a deity. I just grew up that way, and Jews actually, depending upon the segmentation, have wonderful community. Not saying that atheists can't have a wonderful community either, but they
course.
tend to have great community. In the part of the world I am easier to find, but the most Jews that I know, unless we're talking Orthodox, so I'd have to ask what type of Jew she is. They're actually pretty cool with people not believing.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah. Is she like super Orthodox or?
No. That's where I'm heading because
Oh.
my mother is Catholic, strictly Catholic. So this was the household I grew up in. So basically, the reason I went for the entire, when you do what you call Israel and Aliyah, right? When you come to the country and you go through the process of actually trying to convert to Judaism, right? You have to go through these classes, right? And the teacher in these classes made no sense to me whatsoever in anything he told me because that sounded like preaching. That didn't sound like it's coming from a pure place, So
It's a problem with religion.
That's kind of the thing that you're walking into here, which begs the question. I'm not going to tell you that it's wrong or immoral or unethical or impossible or unhealthy or any of those kind of labels to be in a relationship with somebody who has a different value system than you. I will say that it can be tricky, and your values and your religious beliefs don't necessarily need to be identical. I mean, just look at, the U.S. Congress for proof of that. But it does kind of raise the question, are you wanting to be in a relationship with somebody who perhaps has a different worldview than you?
Yeah, there's a commenter in the YouTube chat that says Scoots Monkey. He said it doesn't change your beliefs, but the idea that someone would make you do that is indicative of a larger problem. And I think that's more the thing.
Worth raising, yeah.
To me, that's the thing as well, is kind of like, I mean, I feel like it kind of has to do with what's your tolerance level and, feeling that judgment throughout your relationship kind of, and like how much of that are you willing to sort of tolerate from the person that, is supposed to love you and stuff without judgment.
And where does that end at? Because if you bend on this, what are they going to ask you to bend on next?
Right.
Can I put my 2 cents in, please?
Oh,
of course.
Okay. So I don't see it as the entire process. I don't see it as being wrong. I just see it as being wrong for me.
Sure.
As a person, right?
Yeah, of course.
it it makes no sense for me to judge others about their processes or whatever, right? So the way I saw it, coming into those classes when it was clear for me, right? I could be wrong, but for me it was clear indoctrination about doing this, and other, right? So it made no sense to me to kind of confine to this way of life just because this is what is necessary for me to have a healthy relationship. So I left that relationship, and pretty much this is the start of the question that is it's not just theists and atheists. I'm pretty sure that this situation can reside with a lot of people in terms of a lot of feelings and kind of the way they feel about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of the point I was getting to.
Yeah, no, I do think that you have permission to do whatever you want to do here. You know, if you had
Totally.
decided to go through that class, if you had decided to go through a particular ceremony or whatever else, that's totally valid and you have that right. But I'm not shocked to find that you felt like this was not only an uncomfortable process, but it sounds like something of a deal breaker, because it's one thing
Yeah.
to go through the class. It's one thing to pay some lip service and to do what you're supposed to do, to be accepted by the family or to honor tradition. And there are a lot of cultural elements to religion. And if you want to play along
Yep.
with some of those things, okay, you know, it's not a blank check. You do have some moral responsibility to be thinking about the version of you that you present to the world and the version of you that exists in documents and these kinds of things. But okay, yeah, if you want to go through with this, that's totally your option. You're right. But I'm not surprised to find that eventually you got to the idea that perhaps the two of you don't line up in your values. If she is sincerely believing these ideas that you personally just reject. I mean, is that ultimately the summary of things? Is that the two of you just had different worldviews and those felt irreconcilable?
Well, basically, the way I look at it, right, is let's solve issues now so we don't have a headache in the future. So what that means basically is if me and a spouse or a girlfriend or whatever disagree on something fundamental to both of us, it makes no sense for us to keep a relationship going when we know that in 5 or 10 years this is going to be something detrimental that is going to hurt, I don't know, the children and us and the families and the entire, the way that the world is built, right? Basically the fact that pretty much almost 50% of couple divorce, that's the reason, because they don't think before they, put on the ring that we have fundamental disagreements which we cannot solve. Because when you get to, at least for me, right, when you get to late 20s, 30s, right, your mental kind of ideas are solidified. So changing those...
More solid, sure. Yeah, and I hear your point, and I apologize for cutting you off, but I think it is valid to say that, yeah, you don't necessarily want to be unequally yoked, to borrow that language, and you do want to be in a committed relationship with somebody who more or less lines up with your values. Now, like I said at the very beginning, your religious beliefs or your superstitious beliefs or these different kinds of things, they don't necessarily line up with your values. And so, you know, I am always shy about bringing this up in any of my atheist work, but my partner has a very kind of loose and nebulous sort of agnostic notion of the possibility of a God. but she also is very passionate about reading my horoscope to me on a weekly basis. And I always kind of laugh and I always kind of smile. The thing of it is I don't know that she sincerely believes these things, but I know that she has a good time with it.
Yeah,
but,
she has fun with it.
Yeah,
I was just to say, sorry.
I'm sorry, Amberly, you go first.
I don't mind.
The only thing that shows is you're a lucky guy.
Well, just to say that when we get into a voting booth, we line up. When we are raising a child together, our values line up. When we are making important financial decisions, or when we are passing by someone who is experiencing homelessness, or any of these other things that matter to us, we're totally on the same page. And
that's kind of like what, if I can butt in real quick here, is that, you know, for me, like, I know the things that are important to me in relationships for sure. So, you know, I would say I met my husband, and then our very second time hanging out, I asked those big questions. I said, do you believe in God? You know, what's your sort of political alignment? Because those are things that are fundamental to my existence. And if I don't line up on those particular values, like, it's not going to work. Now, maybe it'll work for, you know, the first year where you've got all those lovely chemicals like rushing through your brain. But at some point you're going to hit that wall where you just can't stand it anymore. And especially when it comes to religious beliefs, it's like, if you were going to scramble your DNA with this person and make children, what happens then? How do you raise your children as far as like spiritual beliefs? And I feel like that is almost impossible. I know there are couples who do it, and they are just saints, for lack of a better word. But I think for most people, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think for most people, it's too much. It's too much to overcome.
That is kind of the way I look at it, because my atheism did not come, you know, from a day or a month or a week or a year. My atheism became solidified just because I was raised in a Catholic household.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, read the Bible. It'll make you an atheist.
It'll make you an atheist real quick. And that's important. You know, I listen to atheist podcasts with my partner. He is like taking care of the kiddo tonight while I do this shit with you fine folks. And, you know, obviously she supports me in this mission, and she supports me in these values. And we, you know, I don't mean to overstress the distinction in our faith, so to speak, because we actually do line up like 95% of things. But even in relationships where that's not the case, it's not the window dressing, it's not the songs that you sing or the necklaces that you wear or those things that make a relationship or break a relationship. It's what the like values that you hold and the morality and where that morality is derived from and these kinds of things. So I'm sorry to hear that this relationship didn't work out for you, Alex, but I am glad that you took it seriously. That you didn't just sort of like give lip service and blow it off and then find yourself 10 years down the road in a commitment that you weren't able to honor. So good on you for taking this all very seriously, for being transparent, and for ultimately making a decision that it sounds like is going to be better service to both of you. And then again, for just giving us a call tonight and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, same. Oh, I was going to add, me and my partner actually have a divergence of views, but like not that bad. Funnily enough, every time I come on here, because she's the one that found the atheist community of Austin, and then I started listening to her. I was actually Christian when we first like.
Ooh.
I know it didn't last long once I started hearing Matt Dillahunty. But and then I dove. It's just funny every time I come on here. She's like, why am I not the one on there? I'm more atheist than you. And so I lived like strictly like fuck all religions for quite a long time. And then but I still miss the community and some aspects of stuff.
Mhm.
And then I was like, well, I really did like this one Jewish segmentation that I grew up at. We had 3 or 4 years of that. And I was like, I like that. Let me see if I can find that near us. Let me see if
Mhm.
they're accepting of a lesbian couple where my wife is trans, a sex worker. I literally just laid it all out for them. I gave them every
Yeah.
reason to hate me. And they were like, we're just surprised Jews are still around and show up.
That's
And I was
so
like,
awesome.
I can do this. And then I was
Yeah.
like, I still don't believe in a sky daddy, but
Right.
I do like their traditions. And they're like,
Yep.
we don't care. And I was like, oh, this worked. So I have more of a faith stuff that I can't let go of, but it's articulated to my wife. My wife is fine with it. As Christy said, when it comes down to the children's, we
Right.
agree on how to raise them. We go to the voting booth. We vote for the same people. There's no divergence in our relationship. And when it comes to going to synagogue, when it comes to going to Rosh Hashanah celebrations and stuff, she can go or not. I don't give 3 shits. She usually goes because it's fucking fun. But
Yeah.
I don't know if I could be in a relationship where I'm like, listen here, Shabbat is coming up. What you gonna do? I don't know if I could be in that.
Well, it's interesting that you said, Amberly, that you said, that you were Christian and then you kind of, saw the light. And right after that is when you were like, fuck all religions for a while. I feel like when I reached the age of reason, I was about 13. And so all of my adolescence into even like early adulthood, I was also like, fuck all religions in the sense of like almost being aggressive against it.
Yeah, the angry atheist phase and the teenage rebellion phase at the same time is where all good punk rock comes from.
Exactly. So, and it's, I think it's just something you kind of have to go through, but I think then you mature in just being a human and also like the things you think about and all of this stuff. And you're just kind of like, as long as you keep your religion like out of my life and it works for you and you're not hurting other people and you're not kicking your children out of the house and this sort of thing, then it's great. It's fine. It's good for you. I might have thoughts about it or whatever, but just don't fucking hurt other people and it's fine. So I think it's almost like, you just sort of, you find that place in adulthood.
Exactly.
Can I give like a closing statement?
Yeah, absolutely.
Am I
What
allowed
are your
to?
final thoughts for the night, Alex?
Well, the way I see it, right, is as human beings, we're given instincts, right? So the way I see it, if something feels wrong, don't do it. If something feels right, do it. We're given instincts for a reason. The only reason we survive as a species is because of instinct. So
No.
that's
Well,
how
I definitely
see it.
appreciate that message. I'm gonna let you go for the night and take a moment to respond to that. But I really do appreciate you giving us a call.
Have a nice evening.
Go ahead. Have a nice day, guys.
Thanks,
All
Alex.
right. Thanks so much. Yeah, I don't mean to kick him off and then knock down everything he said, but I guess I'll just say very briefly, I don't know that we're given instincts. And I have mentioned on the show before that I worry often about the way that we relate to our bodies in these kinds of ways. There's absolutely value in listening to your body's natural reactions. If you walk into a room and all of a sudden catch a vibe, if you feel a door close and you feel unsafe all of a sudden, I mean, that neuroception is something we've talked about on this show before, and it's important. It is worth listening to, but don't obey it. You should listen but not obey. The metaphor I love to use is open heart surgery. We can all agree if we're going to put like a moral value on the incredible scientific miracle that is our ability to take a human heart out of a dead body and to implant it and provide life to somebody who would otherwise no longer be here. That is absolutely miraculous. if I was forced to watch somebody
200%.
perform an open heart surgery, I would probably puke and or pass out. And that physical reaction is not a good indicator of morality. It's something worth considering, but it's not a like end all be all. And I want to be just mindful about holding that out as some sort of like given to us barometer that is somehow magically able to help us define right and wrong.
No. And I want to say too, I want to add that like it's very, very subjective, just like morality. So, you know, when you can say like, if it feels good, do it. Well, something that feels good for me might be illegal, or it might not feel good for someone else and make them hurt somehow, or, you know, whatever. Just thinking along those lines, you know, like
it feels good. It feels good to be naked.
Yeah.
Love it.
But you should probably be mindful.
You should be mindful where you are naked.
I mean, even things like anger and violence and aggression. I mean, we could get into the work of Marshall Rosenberg and talk about nonviolent communication and all of these kinds of things, or even just animal behaviorism. If you lock a puppy up at a young age, they're going to bark and bark and bark. And even though that bark is meant to express distress, we know that eventually it starts to become a soothing behavior. It starts to feel good, that being miserable can feel good, that being depressed or being angry in a certain way can start to feel good. But that's maybe a distortion of what we would otherwise understand to be like a healthy experience of things. So I know this is a little bit of a digression, but it feels like a really important point to kind of highlight and be reminded of.
100%.
Agree.
Cool. Well, now we get to talk about something I've been so excited to get into this week. And there are a million different questions that I have here. But let's talk about lesbian porn. Let's talk about the straight folks in lesbian porn. Let's talk about the male gaze in lesbian porn. I mean, there is so much to cover here, but I guess I want to start by just telling y'all very briefly that I told my partner about this episode that was coming up, and my partner is at least nominally very straight and doesn't generally have an interest in women. But we talked a little bit about how lesbian porn definitely works for her, but only like 5 to 10% of the time. And I was kind of like asking her questions and trying to draw that out of her. Like, well, why, like, how do you know? And what's the difference? And we very quickly came to recognize that, quote, lesbian porn doesn't really do anything for her. But if we can find like queer lesbian porn, or if we can find, you know, something from a like more ethically responsible studio, or these kinds of things, there's like a meaningful difference. And I would love for the two of you to kind of walk us outsiders into what's going on here. Like, why is something that I might see on Brazzers different from what I might see from Sinn Studios when it comes to like girl on girl content?
Yeah. So, okay. Oh gosh. Yeah, that's a lot. But well, we can start. Yes, very loaded. But we can start with the idea that, so I would say, I feel like I could venture to say, and Amberly, you can check me on this if I'm wrong, but I'd say most women who do end up getting into the porn industry to perform are at the very least bisexual. That certainly does not mean all. There's plenty of girls in the business who, you know, you get an agent, and the agent books you for girl gigs, and you do them because it's money in your pocket and you can do it. And usually I'll say you can tell because it tends to be more finger stuff and less mouth on vagina stuff. Or, you know, there's a strap on, but you're watching them both and you're just like, this seems so wrong for some reason. And I can't figure out why.
Don't know how to use it because she doesn't know how to use it. It is my biggest gripe. Do not use a strap on if you've, I will shut up. High corn.
Yeah, no, if you can't, well, this is something too. Yeah. With a company like, and I had a little chuckle, Christy, when you said braziers, because it was a very cute way of pronouncing it. But for example, when Brazzers has, they'll just hire two girls to do a scene or whatever, and then they just hand them a strap on and say, okay, one of you put this on, and there's not a lot of thought put into it and that is 100% a scene that is being shot for the male gaze. Again, I've been in some scenes where it was very directed, and they're like, we need to get some penetration and we have to see it in this way, so you're going to have to put your fingers in her like this. And I'm just like, why are you telling me how to have sex? Like, I know what I'm doing. But they need this,
You're
they
a
need this thing.
documentarian. I'm going to have the sex, you just document it.
Yes. And I'm very blessed because that's 98% of my experience in this business is that, like, yes, they just document me doing what I do. And, but for that stuff, it's very, very frustrating for me when I'm being directed like that, when I'm being directed for the male gaze. And I've kind of come to term that as being like, that is girl porn. Mm-hmm. And I feel like girl porn and lesbian porn are two different things.
I was going to point that out, but she read my notes before I showed up.
Well, no, we're just in sync in that. Because so now when we're talking about the ethics or whatever, I feel like you can't always, as a producer, choose a model and you're like, we know for sure that this model likes to be with girls, so just the logistics of porn don't necessarily allow for that. But when it comes to authentic lesbian expression, I think that you kind of have to go searching for it a little bit more, because I don't even watch porn because I've tried putting stuff on, and whether it's straight porn or girl lesbian, whatever, I'm usually just kind of disappointed with what I'm seeing, and so I'll just like put on my porn and I'm like, yeah, this is basically what I'm looking for. But yeah, so I just I don't know. Amberly, you talk now.
Sorry, I sneezed. Yeah, no, I how to explain. I don't want to say male gaze. Not that I'm trying to correct you at all.
Sure.
You said what you said. But I call it porn narratives, where we've had porn that looks like this. We've had porn that looks in this box. I guess we could say heteronormative for so long, and it's developed a formula. In fact, most porn writers will tell you the same thing, that you're just, they give you the formula and you just write around that formula. And with that being true, things like, for example, when they cast for normal, when I say normal movies, like vanilla movies, non-pornographic movies, we look at for chemistry. Like, this is a really good actor. This actor would be really good in this space, but this is the other actor. Like, how would their chemistry work out? And what I like about lesbian porn is that's usually factored in. Usually when I look at a really hot lesbian porn movie and I talk to the two actresses that were in it, they're like, I researched the other person before I showed up. I knew what type of stuff that they did. I knew the type of styles that they worked with. I talked with them about what type of toys they're bringing. I talked about what type of toys I'm bringing. They like, without production involved, they have these conversations, whereas with girl type, the in the box, the in heteronormative,
the
in the box,
like that.
In
the box. Yeah, it's a good analogy.
Lesbians. So yeah, the in the box porn, that doesn't tend to happen. It tends to be, you do know who's going to be on set, but there's not a lot of collaboration. Chemistry is not something that's factored in. And I think that's where we kind of lose that stilted loss. Because even with a bunch of direction, I've seen some scenes where they just got lucky. Like anything with Angela White in it, that she will figure out how to add some steam to something. She's just, but that is a very
That's what
rare
I keep
quality.
hearing. And I still haven't worked with her, and people ask me all the time, and I'm like, I don't know why we haven't yet.
I'm willing
but
to fund
I want
this.
Let's make it happen.
I'm willing to fund this. Dead
Let's make it
serious.
happen.
Do I get the director's cut?
Of course.
That finder's fee,
course.
something.
Yeah, it'll
like
be.
that.
We'll make you a custom video. There you go.
Oh,
There you go.
exactly. That's what I've always wanted. But yeah.
And I think it's really interesting, Christy, how you're talking about, straight women watching lesbian porn. And there was this Cosmo online article written, and now it was years ago now, but of course I saved it because my name was mentioned in it. But it's called The Straight Girl Appeal of Girl Porn. And there are just so many reasons why that might get a woman who would never in real life be interested in making out with a girl or eating her pussy or doing any of the things lesbians do, but she can watch two women do it on screen. And if they're, genuinely being authentic and really into each other, then they're getting something else out of it. First of all, I think even straight women will agree that looking at women's bodies is a very pleasing thing to do. But aside from that, me too, but but the other thing is that, oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes in hetero porn and boy girl porn, it's very much about the man's pleasure, the kind of like how hard can he pound her kind of a thing, and not how good can he make her feel. It's, as far as what you're watching on the camera, on the video. And when it comes to lesbian scenes, it's never that. It's kind of like, can I make her feel good? And then she's going to make me feel good. And then I'm going to make her feel good again. And then making her feel good makes me feel good. So I'm going to make her feel good even more. And that's the sort of energy that you're seeing in a lesbian porn scene, and how that's different from like a boy girl porn scene. And so I think a lot of women, again, maybe not in real life would they ever want to do it, but to be able to put themselves into either of the women's bodies and feel pleasure. Whereas if you're watching a boy girl scene and you put yourself in the woman's body, you're kind of like, oh shit, I'm just getting the shit pounded out of me right now. And it's like, it feels good, but also
notion of female pleasure.
I
mean, that's something that is generally lacking from a lot of mainstream porn. It does kind of beg the question, like, how should we feel about so much supposedly lesbian content, whether we're calling that lesbian or girl or whatever else, taking this thing that exists, which is women that love or have sex with women, and then packaging it for men? Is that a commodity that we are like comfortable with producing? Is it something that we should be concerned about consuming? I mean, what are the ethics here?
Another loaded question.
For sure. I mean, I definitely don't expect either of you to have
I love
the
it.
answer, but I would just love to know what your thoughts are here.
I love it. Well, okay, so for me, again, we're talking about being biased. Like, I am definitely going to have a biased answer to that.
Sure. Yeah, please.
Because I am a woman who loves women, and I am a queer person, and I am also a content creator. So I am commodifying that shit, and I also am the commodity. So, but at the same time, like, I feel like the sort of lesbian porn that I put out into the world is really important, because I think that people who are like me, people who are like the people that I fuck, like, I want them to see themselves represented in these spaces, and to know that, like, that, you know, it's okay. Like that's a big one.
Sure. Yeah.
But also, you know, like so many times I do encounter like lesbians who are just like, fuck no, I don't watch porn for all these reasons, and because it's bad and it's the male gaze and it's always fake and yada yada. And I want them to find my stuff. And there are other you know, performers in the industry who are like me, who genuine and passionate and really do love being with women and stuff like that. But it's so a little nugget that you have to like dig through the Pornhub, you know, archives to try to find that stuff. Like if you type lesbian into Pornhub, maybe all this other shit comes up before me. Because I've never done boy girl porn. And like I do it with my husband now, but he's the only one that I do it with. And prior to us meeting, yeah, and on my
I have
OnlyFans.
no idea.
Yes, there's some of that on there for sure. But so the idea just being that like I don't want lesbians to be excluded from enjoying porn if that's something that they want. I want them to be able to find stuff like my stuff. And I want them to be able to find like Courtney Trouble's stuff. And I want queer people to see, you know, me working with trans women, me working with plus size women, you know, and others too. Like I don't want to be the only one, you know, and I'm not. I want this more diversity, and you know, yay Pride Month.
Yeah.
I'm so stoked, and I feel really blessed to be able to do this during Pride Month as well, because
Was that planned?
Yeah, I mean, no question. Like, this is a pride issue. This is a issue of how are we treating queer women that work in porn? How are we treating queer women as a society when we are furthering this narrative of you know, women who have sex with each other kind of only do it for male enjoyment, or that's the model. That's the story that gets out in so many ways.
I've never said this before to anybody, much less Sinn Sage yourself. She changed my fucking opinion on porn. I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
All right, well, I want to document this for posterity. Please go on.
Oh, only for posterity. Only.
Right.
Only. But no, seriously, Sinn Sage changed it for me. I was used to the box view of porn. I was used to the browsers. I was used to the pairing of people who may not even be into women. Again, because as Sinn said, not all that enter porn are bi or even bi curious. Like a lot are gay for pay, which no shame. Gay
for pay.
Gay for pay. Wow.
Gay for pay.
Gay for pay. And no shame for that. Get your bag. I'm on it. You're fine. It's good. I support you. Yeah. But I forget which video it was, but it was one of your videos from your studio that I was like, this, what is this? And I think the difference, I think the difference was watching people who actually enjoyed it, watching people do it. And like, have you ever watched editing and been like, that's a jump cut? Why she only got one sock on, because a minute ago she had two on. Even in porn, I'm a continuity crazy psycho.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's like, okay, so you guys took a break and now you're back at it. Like seeing those continuous shots, like they're actually in it and going. I don't mind a jump cut, but a jump cut because we cut some of this out versus we took 10 minutes off to redo the lighting or whatever. The
energy flow stops.
That's what I think it is. Yeah.
Sometimes that does happen just because whatever, like, I don't know, someone farted or something, but but I know what you mean, where it's like, it almost like you can see that there was some direction that happened and it cut off that you were watching the energy flow and then it cut that off.
But like even if they're but using, we're gonna use the farting because that happens a lot. Like bodies do what bodies do. Like if it's more something styled like yours, then again it feels to me, and again, exceptionally biased, like to the point where when I tell people that my wife was trans, when I met my wife, she did not have the words trans. So to me, I was like, I'm attracted to a boy. This is weird. I don't like boys like at all, but you're really cute. So I had like an existential crisis being like, I think I'm bi and I don't want to be. And when she came out as trans, I was like, I knew it.
You're like, this makes sense. Now it makes sense.
Honestly, did. I was
Call
like,
shit.
Exactly. Call that exactly. So like again, like card carrying lesbian.
Yeah.
And when I saw that, like again, I can see some jump cuts here and there, but it feels like you're able to get back into energy because you would genuinely enjoy what you're doing versus I'm doing a job and I'm doing the best performance I possibly can, which is, I'm not trying to diss on their performance at all, but I do think that there's a difference. I also think that there's a huge difference when your production team also understands the heteronormative box. And and
I will say I'm very blessed and lucky that, you know, my husband is the one who is he and I are the production team. And so, you know, we've been together for 10 years. He's really been on this journey with me. And as far as, you know, producing my own content and stuff, and he's always been my cameraman. And, you know, when I met him, he didn't understand gayness at all. And now he's just like, oh yeah, I'm in a queer relationship. And like, we were trans women and all this, you know what I mean? So it's like watching his journey and how it's tied to my journey. And, but the fact that he does understand me and he understands my desire and my sexual desire in that way. And so I personally feel, and have been told from fans and customers, the same thing, that like, he captures me in this authentic way as well, just by the way that he shoots camera. So I think that is an important to have that production team behind you that totally gets what you're going for and, you know, helps you to create that thing.
No, 100%. We also have a comment in the YouTube. I'm watching YouTube chat as we're doing this because I'm narcissistic.
I love it. No, me too.
We can't be entertainers without having a smidge.
True.
The X-Files says it was amateur lesbian porn that changed the game. The X-Files told us this.
Of course, I'm obsessed with the X-Files, so that's really awesome.
It was amateur lesbian porn that changed the game for me. You could tell they were enjoying it by what they're doing, and I think that is chef's kiss. I think that's the important thing. But to answer the question, Christy, whether or not it's ethical, I think that I don't like to judge entertainment. If someone's entertained, if this is the type of like content that someone likes, I don't want to take that away from anyone. And I damn sure don't want to take jobs away from people that are benefiting from that.
Yeah.
But I also think it does a disservice to like people that think that that's sex. They don't.
Right. Sure.
There are people who don't understand that that's not. Please don't plow me like that.
Sure. Well, there are conversations to be had, particularly about teenagers who are engaging with porn at younger and younger ages in a lot of ways, and the somehow we seem to be going backwards in sex education in so many ways. I mean, there are a lot of conversations to be had
in America
here, and there
really are. We could literally talk all day about this.
No, I mean, no question. And there are, it pains me to interrupt the two of you discussing all of this because these are so many industry questions and ethical questions that frankly are what I think about when I stare at the ceiling late at night. So maybe that's because I'm a boring person. Maybe it's because this is a fascinating conversation that I hate to interrupt. But in either case, we're going to get into a little bit more about the ethics of porn here in just a moment. But for now, I want to make sure to take at least one more phone call for the night and hear from David in North Carolina. David, you're on the line. What can we do for you tonight?
Hi, David.
Whoop. All right. I'm going to return David back to the queue and see if we can't get that sorted out. Yeah. In the meantime, let me touch base very quickly with Jasmine. Jasmine, you had some questions about relationships in the adult industry. What's on your mind tonight?
Oh, hello. Thank you for taking my call. I'm Jasmine Gay. I use she, her pronouns, and I am finally making the decision in my life to start producing my own adult entertainment among other media. And I have a hard time figuring out who to trust, who to share, like, myself with, and, like, how guarded to be. So I was just wondering, for both of you, how did you kind of navigate like building relationships and trust with people and like knowing where your boundaries are?
Wow. Well, Jasmine, hello, and I'm so happy that you called in. Jasmine's an awesome OnlyFans subscriber of mine, so very much enjoy
Fred.
Jasmine. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not subscribed.
Yeah, so for me, it was very, very difficult, and my main boundary issues were with me and my fans, not so much me and like production companies or other performers or whatever. So that is one thing to be aware of. Is drawing boundaries with fans. But I think before anything that you enter into, you should absolutely think everything all the way through to the very end. And you should think about all the possibilities. You should be aware of everything that you might encounter. So like one example would be, you'll get 1,000 people telling you how pretty you are and how awesome you are and how much they love you. And then you'll get one comment making fun of the one thing about yourself that you don't like. And you will never be able to stop thinking about that one thing, Yep. And it's just, it's a crazy thing for anyone who puts themselves out there, into the world. But it's like, so that is one thing to think about. Like, do you have the emotional fortitude and the confidence to be able to just let that slide off your back? But so, yeah, thinking about, how far do you want to go? Or maybe you want to take steps, maybe you start somewhere, you get really comfortable up to that boundary, and then you start thinking more and you're like, will I be comfortable pushing that boundary a little bit for myself? But I think the bottom line is make sure that anytime you do something like that, if you're going to push a boundary, it's because you want to, not because someone else is pressuring you to. That's a big one for me. And then when it comes to trust, like, I'm probably not the best person to ask because I am just kind of
pick me.
I take people at their word and then I deal with the consequences afterwards. So yeah, Amberly, go.
Thank you. She read my notes again because I was going to say that thing. The industry's small. Like when I tell people like, oh, I know this person, they're like, they freak out. They're like, oh, that person's like, a big name. But it's not hard to talk to Angela White once you're in the industry. And you've established yourself, and it doesn't take that long to establish yourself either. This industry is stupid small. I think Sinn can attest to that. So there's a lot of stories that you hear a lot about a lot of people, and it's hard to know what's true and what's not. So instead of focusing on who to trust, and I'm a very trusting person. Ask me, if you tell me this guy's pink, I'm going to believe you and I won't go check it.
Yeah.
But instead, what I did is I have a plan for what I want to accomplish. And things that I want this month, things I want in 6 months, things I want in a year, things I want in 5 years. And then I also have an immutable rules of what I will not do. And when I'm looking at someone I'm going to work with, I decide whether or not if working with them is in alignment with one of those goals, if it's going to make me cross one of my immutable rules. If either one of those is, it's not in alignment with my goals, it makes me cross one of these boundaries, not doing it. Then I also have rules that while I typically wouldn't break, there's some circumstances where, okay, I'm willing to consider. And then I also have it spelled out what it would take to get me to break that rule. And it's helped me step on far less toes, still get opportunities, and also be able to sleep at night.
Yeah, and I will say, Jasmine, Amberly is honestly the one that you should ask that particular question to, because she's yeah. No, don't even try to be modest. Like you, when it comes to, basically making a business out of this, Amberly's got the book. She actually wrote the book. I'm sorry, apologies.
It's okay.
Thank you.
I still slip up and say she, her too.
I know. We're all just doing our best here.
But yeah, I hope that answered it.
Thank you.
I hope the therapist.
Thank you so much for calling. No, I'm totally on board.
Yeah.
I think that this is not necessarily a like inherently or intrinsically difficult situation. It's just one that's kind of made that way by a society that doesn't really know what to do with our sexuality. So I appreciate y'all's insight there. And Jasmine, I very much appreciate you giving us a call.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you, Jasmine.
All right. Well, I am going to get David back on the line and touch base with him before we get back to the interview for tonight. David, are you with us?
Yes. Thank you for
Awesome.
having me on.
Yeah, so glad to hear from you. What can we do for you tonight?
Well, I live in North Carolina, and I'm currently in 3 polyamorous relationships with women, 2 of whom are bi, 1 is bi-curious. And when I explain this to people who aren't familiar with polyamory, they think I'm basically in the porn industry and having an orgy every night.
You're not?
And
yeah. I mean, maybe on birthdays and every other Christmas, but that is such like a common misconception. And I guess I'll say to you and to the audience that we don't have a lot of good research about the sex lives of really anybody, but particularly poly folks. There's not a whole lot of good data collection, but perhaps the best researcher on this subject is Dr. Eli Sheff. And she says pretty succinctly that, yes, sometimes people in polyamorous relationships are having threesomes and orgies and these kinds of things, but it's actually way more rare than, Dear Penthouse might have suggested. Like, generally, when people are in polyamorous relationships, they're still dating, they're still sleeping, they're still fucking, more or less one-on-one. I mean, is that's been kind of your experience, David?
Yeah.
Most of my polyamorous friends have far less threesomes and foursomes and orgies than my straight friends. They're always seeming to be doing threesomes and shit. Like, I think
actually
that's the magical formula. Just be straight. I'm kidding. Don't.
No, definitely don't be straight.
Well, I happen to like being pansexual, so I don't think there's any fear of me going straight.
That's good.
But my experience with polyamory is, yes, that I have much more solo activity than any kind of 3-way or 4-way. In fact, the relationships that I'm in currently, the women don't want to even meet each other. They know about each other, but they don't want to meet each other.
Yeah, and I
that's
feel
very
like
typical.
I was gonna say I feel like that's a really common thing with poly relationships. And it's interesting the way you said that people sort of judge your relationship model and think that you're doing orgies all the time and stuff, because I kind of say the same thing about when people think about porn, that they think that someone turns on a camera and people are like, hey, let's just have sex, and like that's how a porn scene is
out
made.
of the bushes, really.
Exactly.
They just arrive.
Like, but in the same way that a polyamorous relationship requires lots of planning and lots of communication, like excessive amounts of communication to be successful.
It's basically like more scheduling than anything else. That's the
actually the
hallmark of a
comments.
poly relationship.
The comments on YouTube said that they're like, it's more scheduling.
Yeah, it's just about
No
scheduling,
question.
but it's about maintaining this communication with all of your partners and constantly checking in, and and it's this that is what porn is like. I mean, we got to fill out paperwork, we have to do consent talks, like it's not like we're just all having fun. I mean, yes, we are having fun. Hopefully, we're having fun, but it's not just like pop on a camera and everybody start fucking. Like, no, these are legitimate productions we're making here. You know what I mean? Like,
I was gonna say, I've been to porn industry parties and conventions and stuff, and only one time did an orgy pop up, and we're talking like 15 years.
Yeah.
And when I say pop up,
So
like
you're
there's an
saying there's a chance.
there once
is
every
always
15
a
years.
chance. It can and does happen sometimes, but for the most part, everyone's got to check the tests. We got to make sure. That's something I really wanted to squeeze in here. Yes, we are all tested every 14 days. You have to have an STI test. So,
and
but anyways,
COVID test.
Yeah, and I'm
off topic a little bit, but.
I mean, we're talking about polyamory and scheduling, so STI test is actually like pretty relevant.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. My doctor has been notified of my sexual activities and things like that, so I actually get tested every 3 months.
Perfect. Beautiful.
That's great. I love hearing that.
Yeah.
And I'm on PrEP, so
Smart.
There's a lot of
But I think like maybe if you have a chance to, when somebody sort of makes you feel judged in that way about your relationship, I think that you should feel that you can stand up for yourself and your relationship and be like, no, it's not like how you're assuming it is. And please
And even
don't.
if it was an orgy every night, what's that to you?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What's that to you? Yeah.
I definitely make it clear that that's not what happens. And I have actually been asked on a few occasions when explaining it if they could come and watch a threesome or foursome.
Jesus.
That's just rude.
And
you should say so.
Yeah.
You should be like, I don't know. Can I come watch you fuck your husband?
I'm with Sinn. That's my go-to. Like, I had people when I told my wife, my wife is trans, and they're like, so how did sex change? Like, I mean, I guess in some way I understand the curiosity, but on the other way, did I ask how warm your wife's pussy is? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that
people will ask invasive questions and not even realize it, and it's something that needs to change.
I think it's only going to change if we turn around and call them out on it. Like, say,
exactly.
No, I do think that that's important. I can have a little bit of patience for an ignorant question that is kindly asked, but I also think that even when it is a very sincere but sincerely ignorant question, that we need to be willing to kind of identify, you know what, you're a good person, I love you, you love me, we're cool here, but you need to know that was ignorant as fuck. Don't go asking other people who don't like you as much as I like you are going to be way meaner, or perhaps should be. So punch you. David, I think that, for somebody who you care about, for somebody who is asking, I might direct them to books like When Someone You Love is Polyamorous or The Polyamorous Next Door by Dr. Eli Sheff. For somebody who sincerely wants to better understand this world, I think it's great to get that information out there. And for somebody who is just a nosy Nelly or is trying to get off on your sex life, tell them to go fuck themselves, but not in a nice way.
Yeah, or charge them.
Yeah, that works too. that's always your other option. Like under a capitalistic
Next-
system, that's always your other option. Just
Next time-
commodify that shit.
Yeah.
Next time they ask, can I come watch?
Well,
Just tell them.
I did.
Sure, it costs $500.
I did used to perform on Chatterbait, so
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
there you go.
There you go.
go.
You're sitting on a gold mine, David.
Yeah. But it's funny because it's the question itself that's problematic, right? The depending on who's asking it and the way they're asking and stuff. But I relate it even to the thing where people, if you're a woman, under 40, people are like, oh, well, when are you having a kid? And why don't you have kids? And I've come up with this plan of attack to just get really sad and be like, oh, I can't have kids. And just like guilt the fuck out of them, because like that's not a question you should be asking people.
I mean, I don't know how
Because fuck you, Karen. That's why. That's why.
I don't know how woke this. I don't know how woke this is, but when I was pregnant with my first child, I had a lady come up to me and put her hands on my belly and start rubbing, and I didn't think. I just got so mad. I kind of feel bad for this, but I just reached out and grabbed her boobs and squeezed. And she looked at me like,
that's how it feels.
Thing.
That's how it
the
feels.
Perfect thing to do.
Yeah.
No, Amberly, do not feel bad for that. That was the thing you were supposed to do.
That was the thing I was supposed to. But and she jumped back and she was like, "What are you doing? You're assaulting me." And I was like, "Oh, I just thought it was an appropriate touch day."
Right?
Like,
yeah.
that was a holiday. Like, this is what we do today.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I was rubbing your belly. There's a baby in there." And I was like, A, you didn't know that. B, don't touch me. Yeah.
It's still my body. And even if it was my baby, it doesn't mean you can reach out and touch my fucking baby either.
Pretty much.
Like,
so I handle it appropriate stuff the same way. The same candor you give it to me, same energy goes back out.
Yeah. That's what I'd recommend.
Well, David, I so appreciate you calling in. I have dozens of questions, really, that I won't be able to get to about ethics in porn that I would love to put to the two of these folks. So I'm going to let you go for the night, but I really do appreciate you calling in and honestly just helping us to take a moment to dispel some of these bullshit ideas about polyamory. And I really appreciate just the platform to say that polyamorists are fucking people. So are pornographers and everybody else. Like, come on.
Yep. Thank you.
I just want to say to the crowd, don't be rude.
Yeah. Fair to say.
Have me on again.
Fair to say. Thank you so much. You have a great night.
Yeah, it's like that old sticker from the 90s is don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Just don't be a dick.
How hard? How hard?
Is it really
Come
hard? The internet makes it hard to not be a dick.
Well, because people are less scared of getting punched in real life when they say stupid stuff now.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the nature of the internet, no question. And I don't even want to imagine the types of questions that come in when folks feel when folks feel privileged because they have contributed something financially, when they feel like you are a commodity, and because they are paying a monthly subscription that they now have access to your deepest, darkest secrets and everything else.
Yeah, or just feeling like they. I pay you $10 a month, so you should be answering every single message I send you immediately as soon as I send it. It's just
How dare you sleep?
Yeah, I was like, sorry, I'm actually not a sex robot that you input money into and get responses back from. Like, I am a person.
Sure.
I need sleep, and I also need a life.
Quickly.
I respond to everybody as soon as I can, but sometimes that's a couple of days. Like, because guess what? I also like to do other things besides sitting on my computer or on my phone. I try to always include that into like, yeah, I need to sleep and I need to eat, but also like, can I have a life too? Would that be okay? But yeah, with if you want to shift to the ethics in porn,
sure.
Like, oh my gosh,
I'm here for it.
I know that a lot of people, thankfully, are very concerned with making sure that the porn that they're looking at is ethically made. And I think that ethical porn has become something of a buzzword. And I think that some companies maybe even take that term on and they put like ostensibly put in practices to sort of make sure things are being done correctly.
Or like at least one bald female performer.
Right,
Like,
at
honestly,
least one.
that's the whitewashing of ethical porn or of queer porn in a lot of ways. I'm not meaning to suggest that there is anything wrong with hiring any particular hairstyle or anything else, but that does feel like one way of kind of creating like that fake environment.
Or even just putting like a bald person in and being like, okay, well now we have a queer porn, but okay, but like I don't fit that, you know, that structure. So if I'm in it, then is it not queer porn anymore because I don't have that look? Like, no, fuck you, I'm queer. But you know, so the most important thing I think, you know, for people who want to be consuming porn ethically is it's really easy nowadays. If you obviously pay for your porn, if you're paying for it, then you are likely consuming it somewhat ethically. But at the same time, you know, if you're watching stuff and you find performers that you like, they definitely have an OnlyFans. Go to their OnlyFans and buy that shit, because that is ethical. That is you are giving your money directly to the person that you want to be supporting. And with that money, they are feeding themselves. They are paying rent. And then they can make you more of the stuff you like to see. It's just like anything. You know, I hate this sort of like vote with your dollar narrative because I don't think it always works that way. But I think when it comes to porn, like it kind of does. People, really. You know,
and like, and not to shit on studios or anything like that, but like chances are if they have their own website, if a performer has their own way of making money outside the studios, if they have their own mini vids, clips for sale, and then you see them in a studio, chances are that whatever was produced, not everything that was produced by that studio, but whatever you see that performer in with that studio is ethically sourced too. Because I know sometimes people like I'm not going to say all performers don't do higher. Like, for example, if you see me in anything, it is anything I created, low production value.
Same.
Don't. Yeah.
Same.
No.
If I created it.
Lies.
No, if I created it. Not if I'm in it. Again, with the studio creations and stuff, but for the most part is.
So look at the studios that the performer you like is working with. If you also then want to consume some of that type of porn, I use that as a barometer of where am I going to place my dollars. They hire a lot of the performers that I like, and those performers also create their own stuff, so chances are that's ethically sourced.
Exactly.
And, sorry,
like if I'm in something, you know, at least for the past maybe 8 years or so, then like I'm working with this company because I like this company. We have a relationship, exactly. Yeah. They've never done anything to me, you know, that's scandalous. But everything Amberly just said, for sure. And I feel like I would love to encourage more people to go about things that way.
Well, viewers of the show have probably heard me say some version of my vague policy, which is that there's nothing wrong with occasionally sampling or stopping by some of those tube sites. And there's definitely nothing wrong with participating in these sort of like free or amateur communities in a lot of ways, so long as you are also contributing to the economy of sexual content. And even if you aren't like paying for everything that you consume, that you are at least in some way contributing to the general economics. How does that strike the two of you?
No, 100%. I watch Pluto TV, which for those who don't know, it's free. It's just constantly plays the shows. They have all kinds of channels and you can just like binge watch stuff. And I find stuff that I like there. And then a lot of times I like it so much, I will go buy it. So I can't tell you don't go to a tube site where people advertise, and it's places like people like me get found and everything.
Yes.
But if you're only watching free stuff, then you're not contributing to what we do.
Yes.
I'll shut up.
No, you're exactly right. And I 100%. And I think, you know, although the tube sites definitely hurt me when they first came around. But now here we are, like 10 years later. I mean, 10 years later, we've been living with these tube sites, and though there are lots of problematic things about them for sure, especially when it comes to underage kids being able to have access to things that they shouldn't. But at the same time, people have discovered me because of these sites and come to me then, and then they do contribute. But I think of it a lot like Patreon. I consume like a stupid amount of YouTube content, and eventually I just could not deal with the commercials anymore, so I had to pay for the subscription service. And then beyond that, I've got the creators that like, I watch every single video they come out with. I love what they're doing and I want to support them. So what do? I go to their Patreons and I pay a monthly fee to support them to keep doing the thing they're doing. And you can think of it exactly that same way.
Mm-hmm.
If you are loving what you're watching, it doesn't matter if it's porn or if it's like a YouTube video, like, you want to throw some money at that creator, and you want to support them, financially, because we didn't choose capitalism. This is what we were born into. So, we all have got to survive under it. So if you can, so every person you can help support, you're just going to get more of that good stuff that you love. And to me, like, that's pretty much the most ethical thing you can do when it comes to consuming porn.
So, pay for your porn where you can. Contribute to the economics of it. Do you have any like warnings that you might add? Any way for us to avoid maybe contributing to something that could be very harmful, whether because a performer hasn't consented or isn't of age to consent, or any tips for just how to avoid, I guess, contributing to the moral evil of the darker sides of the industry?
Well, I'd say for sure, definitely don't be doing any like dark web stuff.
Sure.
That's probably a big no. But also, I do think that I could be ignorant about some of this stuff too. But from me being in this industry as long as I have, like, I don't see a lot. I've seen zero underage stuff. Every single time that I have been involved in a production, like the checking of the IDs, the signing of the paperwork is very, very important. And I'm not going to say like we've had consent talks on every single set I've ever been on. I've been doing this for like 18 years, but I've never felt like the intention was to violate me. I'm probably privileged in a lot of ways. I mean, what can I say? I am. I'm sure I am. But I think that is somewhat a little bit less of a problem than the sort of media narrative, and especially the anti-porn people would like for you to think. So that's why whenever I hear people kind of talking about ethical porn, it makes my like spidey senses go off a little bit, and I'm like, okay, well, where are they getting their information, and what kind of ideas do they have in their head that it's probably not based in the actual lived reality?
Yeah, the new drug and these different organizations that push that narrative. Yeah, I hear that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so 100% what Sinn said, 600% what she said. I don't know if that question came specifically from the new New York Times article, expose about OnlyFans. I will say, I know, but I mean, it was stupidly written and like they went about it in horrible ways, but I won't deny there's the possibility of kids lying and then creating something like an OnlyFans and using someone else's ID or something like that.
I would never discount the possibility of these things.
Oh,
being
absolutely.
I just
I mean, I'll go right ahead and say that when I was 14 years old, I had a job in a state that I was supposed to be 15 in. So the notion that there could be somebody under 18 claiming, or who's 17 or something along those lines, claiming to be like, certainly that notion exists. Exactly. I think that's a little different than the narrative of people being like forced into slavery and these different things, which certainly one person in a world of 7.5 billion is one person too many. Right. But 100%. This idea that it is incredibly widespread in these ways is I think a little out of step with reality.
Absolutely, yes.
Exactly. Like even the platforms that we're on, ManyVids, Clips for Sale, I Want Clips, all of them require you to upload your ID. They require 2257. And they make you put your ID right next to your face. So that, I mean, mine doesn't look that much like me. We've got issues. You get it redone.
You know what? I'm not showing my driver's license picture. Yeah, I wouldn't expect you to. Like, we don't need to go down that road.
Exactly. So like, as long as you're consuming your porn on like known websites, you're probably okay. It's when you're going to torrent sites and stuff like that.
Yes.
That's what I was trying to get to. Like, does this stuff happen? I'm not going to ignore that the possibility isn't there. Or, I mean, truth be told, it's most likely happened, but the known adult industry sites, the ones that when I prattle it off, you most likely know it. Or if you go to like Avian or XBiz or Why Not, and you can see them as a sponsor, chances are they're following these rules because we don't like jail time.
Yes.
Fair to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's how you can make sure you're consuming ethical. Well, I mean, at least, in that regard.
So what does ethics mean? No, I'm just kidding.
No, we are at the 8:30 mark. We are already technically over time, which I knew we would be because this is way too important of a discussion to rush. But that being said, before we try to dissect the English language and debate moral philosophy, I'm going to give our production team just a moment to go ahead and pull up a collection of links and things so that folks can find Sinn out on the internet. But while they're getting that loaded, do either of you have any final words or any last thoughts that you want to make sure to leave with the audience tonight?
Go subscribe to Sinn Sage's OnlyFans.
I've make sure to like and subscribe.
I've only heard good things.
Smash that like button. Well, Amberly, good God, thank you so much for saying that.
Beautiful.
So I do have a paid one and I also have a free one at this point. So you can sort of go, if you go on my free one, you get to more choose which things you want to buy, do a little a la carte sort of thing. But if you go to my paid one, it's not very expensive at all. And it is a lot more of an intimate, I call it like a true fan club experience. And you get to actually, kind of see what I'm doing, and I make sure to post something every day, and I reply always in the DMs and all that stuff. So it's the best place you have to talk to me if you want to talk to me, and also do a little bit of supporting me and all that stuff. Hey, awesome. There it is.
Yeah, we've got that link up on the screen for folks in the podcast audience, and really for everybody. I'll go ahead and say we've talked about a lot of different performers. We have talked about a lot of different websites, and frankly, a lot of different things that YouTube is not super excited about us talking about. So there are definitely a bunch of links in the show notes for this episode, even more than normal. I'll make sure to have a number of these articles that we've been discussing available, and all of the not safe for YouTube type links that they don't love for us to share. You can find those on my website, and there will be a link for that in the YouTube description as well. So if you are curious to find Amberly or Sinn's work or any of these different kinds of things, please check it out. Go directly to the website so that you can pay for your porn. It's a very important thing to be doing.
I was going to say, I'm subscribed to the Patreon.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And well, You know who else happens to have a Patreon and these different opportunities to support the work that we're doing and the things that we're putting out? We have been having this fascinating conversation, or a little bit over, so I'm going to run through it very, very, very quickly tonight. I'll let you all know that the ACA has a number of great productions beyond secular sexuality that we hope that you'll check out. One way to do that is tiny.cc/AEN podcast, where you can find a collection of all of the great content that's coming out of these studios. I want to definitely encourage people after this show is over to get connected, to be part of this community, and to jump into the community of the atheist community of Austin. One great way to do that is through the Secular Sexuality fan group that you'll find on Facebook. So we definitely hope to see you there. Lots of great conversations. All of these kinds of links and things that we've been talking about are right there on Facebook. As well as in the AC Discord. The ACA's Discord group is another great place that is run by fans. That is a great way to connect with people. And if you are catching this live on June 10th at 8:35 now, as we go further and further over, we'll be jumping in there here in just a few minutes. So we would love to talk to you live. But regardless of when you catch this, it's a great way to just enjoy the community. You know, as the world starts to open up, we hope that you will take an opportunity to become connected with other atheists, with other curious and interested people who are asking great and interesting questions about the world, about life and death and the cosmos and what does it all mean? I have no idea, but there are plenty of wonderful people that would love to talk to you about it in the
and that's
ACA
okay.
Discord. Right?
It's okay not to know.
Anybody who says they do know is absolutely lying. So we should be talking about it and figuring it out, not pretending to know it already. Otherwise, please support this show through our Patreon or by going to bit.ly/AEN merch, where you can find a number of great branded secular sexuality products. And having run through all of that as quickly as I could, I now want to slow down for just a moment to truly give the appropriate amount of time to the incredible cast and crew that puts all of this together, all the folks behind the scenes that make this show happen. We have so many folks in our crew cam tonight because there's so many people that go into making this show work. We've got multiple crew cats. We've got an incredible crew of people putting this all together. And finally, I want to sincerely say to both Amberly and Sinn, thank you so much for being here tonight. Thank you so much for sharing your insights into this world that really everybody interacts with. I mean, everybody is, if not consuming porn, is lying about consuming porn, or is in some other way impacted by the world of porn. But frankly, we live in a culture, in a society where, the Avengers are on 100 different magazines a day, but nobody is like really talking about how this industry works and what's going on behind the scenes and how people are getting paid, how people are getting taken care of. And I really appreciate the two of you taking the opportunity to just share all of this with us and to help walk us through some of these kind of tricky ethics.
No, awesome. 100%. It was an honor. Thank you.
Yes, super honor and pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, if you are catching this live, please come and join us in the Discord group. And otherwise, this is probably a good time to pull up your favorite pay site to maybe select a video. Make sure to enter your credit card or PayPal information. And give yourself a big ol' orgasm. Or, better yet, give somebody else one.
Somebody else one.
Hey.